the next, the project life cycle. Let's see what happens here. So let's try and understand the life cycle. We will first learn what life cycle is in terms of project management, and then we will understand the differences between the project and the development cycle. What is a project life cycle? What is a development life cycle? What is the basic differences we will learn? What do we mean by phases? What is a project phase? We will understand. And then finally, we'll close the topic with understanding of phase gates. So if we understand the term, the project manager, or in terms of PMBOK guide, the project life cycle typically involves 4 steps. So the start or initiation step, the organizing or planning step, the execution, and then finally the closing step. So as you can see in this image, a development cycle could just be a part of one of the phase. You can see here the project life cycle has 4 steps: the start, organize step, execute step, and close step. And they can be divided into different phases, right? So the phase need not be linked to the first start. That is why you can see they are not aligned with the blocks here, just for the sake of understanding. So we have phases that are different from the steps of a life cycle. And then in each phase, and by the way, just because I have put 3 phases here, that doesn't mean they are lesser in number than the steps. They're actually more in number than the steps here. So just don't confuse yourself. So what happens here is the development cycle could just be one of the phases of the project life cycle. And you can see that again, there are 4 steps for this life cycle. So within this just one phase, we can again further have 4 different steps in the development life cycle. So now typically the project management is handled in a predictive and adaptive way. But the development life cycle is handled in all the 5 different ways. So don't worry, these terms may be quite new to you. So for the exact definition of all these terms, I recommend you to please go through the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. 6th edition is going to be your Bible for passing PMP exam. But as far as I remember, let me try to explain these things to you. Predictive life cycle is usually a traditional method where the scope, time, cost, they're all defined at a very early phase of the project. And when we talk about iterative cycle is a agile method. So the time and the cost, they are changed as the project moves forward. But the scope is predefined, right? So when we say scope, time, cost, scope is predefined, but the time and cost part are changed as the project moves forward. When we say incremental can be both agile and traditional, and this can be called as a progressive iteration, right? So as the functions keep getting added at every iteration, the project moves forward. Adaptive life cycle. What is an adaptive life cycle? This is also an agile process, and they are usually change driven. The term itself, you can learn that adaptive, it's driven by change. Whenever a change comes, the project adapts itself. So finally, the hybrid life cycle, as the name itself indicates, it could be combination of any 2 processes or 3 processes or all the 4 processes. So hybrid type of life cycle. Okay, moving on. The project phases can be named, right? So what name can be given? It can be named as phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, as you can see here. This is just an example. They can also be named as phase A, phase B, phase C, or some cool names are also given. All this naming is not important. These are not standard as per the PMBOK guide. They're all given as per the organization's rules, or sometimes even linked to the project. So what they actually mean is how the work is divided. So as you can see here, it can be called as development life cycle phase also. For now, I have mentioned it as phase 1, but in some organization, they may choose to call it as development life cycle phase. Okay, so here I have shown the list of tasks that could be targeted if we choose the development cycle. You can just have a look at it. So in phase 1, what could be happening? Phase 2, what could be happening? Moving on, phase gates. Phase gates are nothing but the review mechanism, right? So that we are putting some review mechanisms to validate whether a phase is actually achieved or not. So phase gates, this is usually a typical symbol of a phase gate. So for phase 1, we have gate 1. For phase 2, we have gate 2. And then phase 3, we have a gate 3. So to validate or to say the phase 1 is cleared, what type of review is done, that is understood here in gate 1, and so on and so forth. Here we are on the overview of the processes. Let's quickly see what we have here. I think I have already briefed you a lot about this, so I'll try to go through it very quickly. We have a total 49 processes in total. I keep repeating it. And then they are divided into process groups and different knowledge areas. Let's quickly have a look at the table. Again, here we have the table. As you can see, the knowledge areas, we have 10 knowledge areas in the first column. And then we have 5 different process groups in this row, or 5 different columns. And all the 49 processes are linked here. So I keep repeating it because it's very, very important in terms of the exam. You have to learn all these processes by heart. When somebody asks you in sleep which process group the plan schedule management belongs to, you have to tell that it belongs to the planning process group and that it belongs to the project schedule management. Just an example. So it is very important in the exam point of view that all these processes to be remembered by heart. I repeated that. Okay, moving on. Role of a project manager. In this lesson, we'll understand what is the scope of influence of a project manager, what skills are required by him, and what are the differences between a leader and a manager, and how to perform the integration. So the project manager can influence or get influenced by the people in 5 different stages. You can see the project, organization, industry, profession, and other disciplines. These are the 5 stages where a project manager can influence somebody or can get influenced by somebody. This drawing is a typical representation from the PMP guide, 6th edition again. So you can see how important the 6th edition is for our exam. So let's quickly go one by one. First thing, obviously, within the project manager, where he has the maximum power, he can influence and get influenced. Second thing is within the organization, where using the responsibilities he has, he can request or even demand the resources at the company level. At the industry level, influence, right? So where he can interact with the other organizations other than just our own organization, like customers or vendors, maybe even the competitors sometimes, during inter-organizational meetings. So he can also influence people within that industry. And he can interact with the people and influence across his profession, because he is a PMP, or even if he is not a PMP, all the project managers meet in groups and then share their ideas. So he can also influence there as a project management professional and also get influenced. And finally, the other disciplines also, like for example, let's say you are from a IT project manager, you can go and interact with a construction project manager, right? So project management can have a shared principles, shared understandings of how good things are done. So if a best practice is done in construction company, this IT project manager can go and learn from him, get influenced by him, or he can share his experience about how he has managed the project well.